I am very happy to host Ms. Th'ya, the current president of the Economic Policy Institute, one of the leading progressive think tanks in the United States. Ms. Lee is an economist, and she has been leading this organization for the past 3.5 years. And I also saw on Twitter this morning that soon you will be leaving this role to join the Biden-Harris administration, so congratulations.
Thank you so much, Ya'ara. I'm excited both to have been leading EPI for 3.5 years, and also I'm excited to go into the Biden administration.
So first, maybe you could tell us a little bit about President Biden's American Rescue Plan.
Thank you so much, Ya'ara. I'm delighted to talk about the American Rescue Plan. It is pretty momentous and ambitious and progressive. So it's not perfect. Very few policies end up perfect by the time they come through the U.S. Congress. But this one is a $1.9 trillion plan over several years. And this was the first plank in the Biden-Harris administration's push to do what we call the relief and recovery, coming out of the deep economic downturn that we experienced during COVID, but also all the associated crises, the public health crises, the racial inequality crisis, the crisis for working women. So a lot of things happened.
Do you think that some expansion of government responsibility was already on the way before, and COVID just gave it a push? And of course, this was a push that brought to a big investment. Or do you think it was a complete game changer?
We all, barely survived the Trump years. It was, and it culminated on January 6th with a violent attack on the seat of our government at the Capitol. And honestly, I think the country is still shook up, the combination of that and COVID together. And by the end of the Trump presidency, wasn't that easy to say, what Republicans are for and Democrats are for, because he kind of busted through a lot of those conventions. I feel like that did make it easier for the Biden administration to come in and just say, you know what, we've had a rough time. We've all been traumatized. The economy has been knocked sideways by this. And therefore, we have the wherewithal to build back better. That's the phrase of the Biden-Harris administration. But it is kind of a good thing, which is to say also, we're not just trying to limp back to where we were pre-COVID in February of 2020. What we want to do is take the lessons we've learned.
This new policy really does seem like a beginning of a paradigm shift in the way people think about economics. So to what degree would you agree with this statement? And also, what do you think, if you do agree, what do you think enabled this as far as the role of civil society? I'm talking about the time before COVID, think tanks, unions, activists. What was their part in enabling this plan?
I remember at that time when EPI was new, we were often treated as kind of a fringe element, lefty, nobody needs to listen to you, nobody's paying attention. And we sort of stayed the course. Like we were very clear that a lot of the growing inequality in the U.S. came from deliberate and systematic policies to stifle the voice and the bargaining power of workers, and that the outcome for the economy was bad. And people came to us. So the mainstream of the economics profession has learned, has grown, has evolved. And another piece of that is about deficits, deficit spending and budgets and taxation. And that was a pretty important piece of research, which is to say that for too many decades, the central focus of both Democratic and Republican administrations was we can't have budget deficits. Actually, Democrats and Republicans would both say it, and then Democrats would work to actually reduce budget deficits, and Republicans would balloon them. And the Biden administration right now is basically thrown that out and just said, you know what? We're in a huge economic crisis. Interest rates are low. Inflation is low. It's been low for a long time. The bigger danger is doing too little.
The political right in Israel has been in power for many years. And today we're also dealing with a stagnation in policy. Pretty much very little is happening in policy change in Israel due to the political deadlock. So basically, I think my question is, do you have any tips for us about what we can do from the sidelines as progressive thinkers and activists to prepare for the day after, for the case of a possible political change.
Building the case, building coalitions, building support, and having faith that there will be that moment when the light bulb goes on and people start to think differently. And, I mean, like all of us, it's always going to be a roller coaster. There's no permanent victories in politics, and hopefully there are no permanent losses either. We want to make sure that people are armed with the best possible facts and ideas and analysis.
Thank you so much. This was such an interesting conversation, also an optimistic one. We're dealing with many similar issues here. And I'm very, very grateful for your time. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Yara. It was my pleasure, and I wish you all the best.